it's a problem with this country. And this president, because he ain't my president, I'm going to be very clear about that. He's not my president. It's awful. He's breeding it. But again, my thing has always been with him. You can be crazy, right? It's one thing to be crazy, but it's one thing for folks to follow your crazy. That's the scary part.
Yeah, but you guys were talking earlier. You said he's crazy. So the guy gets beat up in Manhattan because he's wearing a MAGA hat. Okay. I gave my response, and I said, "Hey, very good."
Right.
You guys you looked at me and you were like, "No."
No. I just looked at you because when I saw it on the newspaper, I said, exactly. That's what you're going to get. I didn't say that here, but I said that to myself when I first saw it. Because it's a problem. Because when you're talking about make America great again, what does that even mean?
That it wasn't great before.
Right, it wasn't great before, and you want to make it great again, meaning that you feel like you want to get rid of all of the people that you deem what?
That don't fit in America.
Right. That's a problem.
Right.
Even someone was talking about that the Japanese internment camps are still open, and that's where they're housing some of the migrant people. And I'm saying to myself, and first of all, that's a problem for the country. Why were they still even open? You think they still got those Holocaust, the Jewish, what do they call them? The camps that they had for the Jewish people. You think they got them still open? No. They don't have them still open, right? They shut them down, or they might have one set up there like a museum or something so people don't forget. But they don't have them open so that they can get them up and running again, right? It's a problem.
But
it's a problem.
It's more America's problem than it is our problem. That's what I say.
When you say
when you say America, but
we're in America. You said you was a patriot, Kyle.
I am a patriot. But see, that's the thing.
What do you mean by that?
Because they've taken America from us. Like, I can't say I'm an American anymore because you said, but Kyle, you're an American. This is my country too.
It absolutely is.
And
quite frankly, based on slavery and what we were talking about last episode with the reparations, it's more our country than anybody because we built it.
That's right. I agree.
You know what I'm saying? Our blood, sweat, tears, and hard work built up this country.
And went into forming this country.
So if we want to talk about who need to go, right? And then on top of that, everybody other than the native people came here as immigrants. I just don't understand what they don't get. I just don't understand what they don't get. Everybody came here from somewhere. So what is the problem? So now you just took it over?
Because that's what Trump wants to do. He wants to take over the term patriot. Or it don't belong to the Indians anymore, who were first here. It belongs to us, the white people.
Right.
That's what Trump wants to do.
We want to take it over. Right.
And I'm saying we can't let him take it over.
Yeah,
we
but
can
then,
be patriots
we
too.
got black people sitting up here talking about they not voting. So see,
do you still feel that people will not participate inside the next election?
You know what? I don't know. I know I have a good friend of mine, and I was shocked when he said he has not voted in the last 2 elections. Shocked. And people just don't get it because people say, my one vote doesn't count. Well, okay, but if you have 1 million people saying that, that's 1 million votes.
Yeah.
That's where the problem is.
I agree, and I think sometimes people don't look at the big picture because when you have the debates are generally about the presidential candidate, possibly the vice president. Mm-hmm. They're not looking at the federal judges and the appeal courts or the courts underneath them. They're not looking statewide. We're right now in Queens County, and they're still trying to figure out if the DA is well. I mean, they
haven't certified the election.
They have they're taken because there were some votes that were not counted, so hence they're going to court on the uncounted votes. It's very close. The difference, I think, in that election here in Queens County is about 100 people.
Wow.
So when you look at the people, let's say
before the recount, it was 65 people.
Yeah, that say that your vote doesn't count. And when you talk about a DA, it's the difference. Let's say, for instance, if you were in Staten Island and gentleman that got choked to death, the DA didn't want to prosecute the cops because to indict a cop in front of a grand jury, people say it's like, creating something to do with a ham sandwich. But creating a ham sandwich, it's that easy to do, to indict someone. It's not a hard thing. It really just comes down to what you want to do.
Right, and it's an indictment. It's not a conviction.
Correct.
Right? It's just the first step. And the thing about it too, and talking about just the our judicial system, someone had said, and I was like, wow, this makes a lot of sense, about us also as people of color sitting on juries. We got to sit on these juries. When they talk about juries of our peers, and it's just a whole bunch of non-people of color deciding the fate of people of color.
Well, that works two ways.
Right?
Even if people of color are there, you can cherry pick who you want on the jury.
Yeah, but we
there's
still
a
have
process,
to try.
There's a process of elimination. But hey, I only have a few moments left, and if you guys can get together right here very quickly, a little closer, because I have a question for both of you. And the question has to do with Kyle had started up this whole topic of patriotism, which was interesting because eventually I then turned on the camera and said, hey, let me film a little bit of this. Most conservatives, or I can't back up so far, you're way out of the means of the camera.
All right, come down.
Most conservatives think about, there you go. Most conservatives, they like to esteem Ronald Reagan as one of the greatest presidents. And just a few days ago, you had some of the Nixon files that were finally released. And it had to do with a UN vote. And one of the African nations did not vote. I think it was to allow Russia, it was to allow China to have a say on something. I can't recollect that everything verbatim. But one of the African nations chose not to vote the way of the U.S., and Ronald Reagan had called, them like barefoot monkeys. And, for many years, I've always heard a lot of Caucasian people in this country, saying, hey, Ronald Reagan, great president, he did this, did that. Now, I grew up during that period of time. I remember he cut education, he cut student loans, this, that, the other. There was also a recession during his time, but they loved trickle-down economics, which you're kind of dealing with right now. You cut taxes for the wealthy and, the scraps. Hopefully the blue collar and the poor and indigent will rise to the top, which it never. Most economists will tell you that doesn't work. But it's interesting to note that this person who they thought was such a patriot is just as much a racist as everyone else. And I think there's a saying, you can still see who a person is in their death. His daughter, and I do not recall her first name.
Patty Davis.
It's Patty Davis. I don't know if he had more than one, but if that's her name,
as in Symbionese Liberation Army.
No.
Interesting. No. That's Patty Hearst.
Oh.
You are a 70s baby, though. But no, she was like, hey, I read it. She did an op-ed. I don't know if it was in the New York Times, Washington Post, and she was like, hey, I don't want you guys to really think of my dad in such a bad light. But I said, hey, finally you get to see the light of who he really was. Now I know I'm an extremist, and I know most people.
Who he was.
Yeah, I'm an extremist in my views many times, and and my mom was not an extremist. She was more of a moderate. She was a moderate. In my light, when he got shot, and I was a youngster then, I was like, I knew who he was. I knew what he was doing. My feelings were no different today. I just never really cared for him.
But
to hear those words.
This is my thing.
I had nothing to do with him getting shot, but
you weren't sorry.
I wasn't sorry. I had no empathy.
This is my thing, though. Even Reagan, even the two Bushes, I don't know if any of them fueled the hate that the current president is fueling. I think that's my concern. I think they all have issues. I think even us as black people have said things that might be derogatory against another race, even our own race. So I'm not discounting that. I think though, when you have a leader of a country, right, who also is by default a leader in the overall, our overall world, to fuel hate like the current president, I think that's where the problem is. Because I don't think, even whatever issues people have with Reagan, the two Bushes, even with Clinton, I'm saying, because those are the presidents in my lifetime, even, the issues that they might have had with FDR, with who tried to do good for the country, but was, not good to his wife, right? So that's still a problem. But nobody is fueling the hate like the current president, and that's really the problem. He's fueling the hate. He's fueling the hate, and he's fueling the hate against people of color. And again, we all came here from somewhere.
All right. So in wrapping, the one thing that I want to add to that is the thing that I'm hoping never happens is that someone, because even that someone doesn't go up to one of those ladies that we're speaking about and tries to assassinate them just based on the thoughts. Because there are enough crazy people that have the ability to get guns because the gun laws are so loose in this country, and to me that's a real big fear. And I know people are listening. I said, I had no empathy for Ronald Reagan. Yeah, maybe a big part of it is that's just me speaking, because I really didn't care for his policies. I never want anybody dead, so I'll put my disclaimer there. In the heart of everything, every day that you hear him fueling those speeches, I think about that one crazy or two or three crazy persons that just comes out and thinks about doing harm to one of those ladies.
Can I interject something? You say those ladies, but I think it's bigger than those ladies.
It's
bigger than that, because it's a whole country. It's half a country that feels that way.
No, correct.
The guy went into the church and shot all those people.
Or the one that just killed the people at the festival.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're absolutely right.
Targeting people of color.
The guy that had the van with all the crazy stuff on it.
Yeah.
That they arrested. So it's bigger than just those four ladies.
Yeah. You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. Well, I'm very glad that you guys were allowed to do this uncut version. There's sometimes that I get a little perturbed that I can't get them to really say it, and they say that it's me that I'm preempting them. But I'm glad that we were able to get these two pieces in hand. I thank you very much. This is Justifiable Noize Project, the uncut version.